Greetings everyone, my name is Stefan and welcome back to part 7 of the Ultimate Guide to Stellaris. In this video we'll be covering Unity, Traditions, and Ascension perks. And these things are actually quite important, and the order in which you go for Traditions is also quite important. Now, first thing I do want to point out is that Unity is not nearly as important as technology, and so if you're faced with a choice of building more Unity or building more technology, you should definitely go with more technology. Unity is something that you will be generally able to generate through ruler pops. And so if you don't have a single Unity building throughout your entire empire like this one, you will still be getting some Unity, and this will be enough to progress you through some trees. The trees that are most important in this whole selection are probably Expansion, Supremacy, and arguably Prosperity. Expansion is a very powerful tree, and regardless of what type of empire you play, such as a normal, organic, hive, or machine, this will provide you with plenty of bonuses. And by the way, if you're playing with another type of empire, the bonuses that you'll be getting are generally the same, with perhaps a few changes. So the tree adoption will probably go in the same order regardless of what empire you play, with one exception that I'll be covering later. Early on though, you definitely want to be going with Expansion because it provides the best bonuses for early game, really. You'll be able to expand faster, and you'll be able to get a very solid boost to pop growth speed. After Expansion, you have more options. You can go with Prosperity. This will grant you some very good economic benefits. You can go with Harmony. Harmony will provide you a wide range of good things. Or you can go with Diplomacy. Diplomacy is really only necessary if you're planning on doing diplomacy, and especially if you're planning on making a federation. Two of the traditions in this tree are focused on federations, and so if you're not planning on going with one, this tree is probably a waste. If diplomacy fails, however, or you're planning to go with a more aggressive empire, you'll probably want to go with Supremacy. Supremacy is probably the only tradition tree that you would consider choosing as the first one over Expansion. If you're playing on higher difficulties of the game, such as Grand Admiral, or you're playing with the Starnet AI mod, you will know that AI builds ships and fleets very quickly, and so you'll want to be prepared as soon as possible. Supremacy overall is one of the best tradition trees in terms of bonuses. However, it's only useful in times of war. If you're not at war, most of Supremacy's bonuses will completely go to waste. This means that if you're playing something like an inward perfection empire, Supremacy is probably going to be one of the last things you would go for. Instead, you would probably go for Harmony and get the ship fire rate bonus through here. The bonuses in the Harmony tree are generally quite decent, so going for that as the second or third tradition tree is not a bad idea. What is a bad idea is something like Domination. The bonuses you get from Domination are really quite terrible. You get bonuses to Governor Leader Cap, Ruler Cap, extra housing from capital buildings, of which you build 1. The only good thing about this tree is this resource output from workers and slaves, and the fact that you get a solid 1 monthly influence per month after researching the Domination tree. This finisher effect, which you get from finishing the entire tree, is one of the best ones, but at the same time you have to slog through hot garbage. Speaking of bad trees, Discovery is also not that good. It does have some pretty nice bonuses, such as Polytechnic Education, which gives you extra leader experience gain, and Faith in Science, which actually provides you with quite a nice bonus in reduced upkeep for research jobs. But otherwise, it's an early game tradition tree, which is overshadowed by Expansion in nearly all cases. If you do have enough Unity production, you might want to go for this anyways, because it does give you plus 10% to research speed at the end, but besides that, it's really not that special. Now that we have all the trees covered, let me just tell you what order I normally would go for. Normally, I would go for Expansion first and foremost, unless I'm playing on high difficulty, where I would go for Supremacy. Afterwards, it is a toss-up between Prosperity, Harmony, and Discovery. Discovery is something I would go for if I have a lot of Unity production, Prosperity is something I would go for if I have plenty of planets, and Harmony is something I would go for if none of those things are true. After selecting the second tradition tree, I would select whatever ones I did not choose in the first round. Other trees, such as Supremacy and Diplomacy, are situational. With Diplomacy, you really only want it if you're forming a federation to get the bonuses for that, but otherwise you should probably leave this alone. With Supremacy, however, you will want to go for this as soon as it's looking like you're going to go to war. Domination, on the other hand, is something I would practically never go for. Now that is the order of traditions for a normal empire. Let me show you some special cases. If you are playing with a Machine Empire from the Synthetic Dawn DLC, you will get the Versatility tree instead of the Diplomacy tree. Granted, all of your other trees are slightly altered because you're a machine, but versatility has the greatest change. This tree gives you things like reduced pop housing usage, decreased upkeep, and decreased resettlement cost. The adoption effect of reduced pop assembly cost is also pretty decent, and the finisher effect of being able to demolish stuff to get a refund is actually quite horrible and honestly is a non-factor. The versatility tree is slightly better than the diplomacy tree, however it is still quite horrible and I would go for prosperity or synchronicity before that. A hive-minded empire, which you'll be able to get with the Utopia expansion, would have the adaptability tree, which is actually extremely good. Not only do you still have access to federations, you also get survival of the fittest, which is actually really good if you're on the defensive and are defending with armies. Extra habitability, which is always good, and a 10% increase is quite amazing. And appropriation, which gives you plus 33% reduction to resettlement cost. But the cherry on top for this tree is adaptive ecology. This tradition gives you a free building slot across all of your planets, and this one tradition alone makes adaptability worth it to go for as either the first or the second tree in every situation. The adaptability tree, however, is not exclusive to hive minds, and if you're playing with something like the Inward Perfection Civic, you do have access to it still. The only difference is that instead of getting the ability to form a federation, you'll be able to get extra food output. And this tree right here is quite amazing indeed. And before I forget about it, the finisher effect for adaptability also gives you a decision on your planets to gain an extra random planetary feature, such as extra mining districts, extra energy districts, or even extra slots for gas, motes, or crystals. In my opinion, that is quite good, and it is very, very worthwhile to go for adaptability, especially in this case. As far as Ascension perks go, which are unlocked by finishing trees and getting Ascension perk slots, you will generally want to go for some very specific ones. The first one that I would generally recommend is Technological Ascendancy. This gives you extra research speed and increases the rate of rare technologies. This is quite good and will help you out with getting things like synths and megastructure engineering, which is of course only applicable if you're playing with the Utopia DLC. If you are playing with that DLC, you'll be able to go for certain megastructures, such as ring worlds and Dyson spheres. These things are quite powerful, and you should really try to go for that in the late game. You'll have access to things like engineered evolution, synthetic evolution, and psionic evolution. These evolutions are going to be your primary usage of Ascension perks, because these will alter your empire significantly. Of these three ascensions, Mind over Matter requires the least technology, only requiring a single technology in the Society tree. Bioascension will require a few more technologies, one for Engineered Evolution and one for Evolutionary Mastery, while the Synthetic Ascension will require the most technology, but will also give you the strongest empire. A synthetically ascended empire is not really beatable by any other sort of empire, except for perhaps an extremely overpowered and snowballing machine empire. A synthetically ascended empire will transform its entire population into robots, which are going to be significantly more efficient and just better than normal pops. Plus, you get insane amounts of growth from synthetic evolution. I'll be covering all of these things in a separate video, but for now keep in mind that the synthetic ascension is the most powerful. Otherwise, there are some other ascension perks that you should really keep in mind. Those include One Vision, which gives you plus unity, minus amenities usage, and extra governing ethics attraction, which is actually quite good and is actually really competitive with technological ascendancy in certain scenarios. Otherwise, things like Mastery of Nature, Executive Vigor, and Transcendent Learning are also pretty good. The Voidborn perk can be good in certain scenarios, but is generally not worth it. Arcology is also generally good, but is generally not worth it. And xenocompatibility is something you should stay away from at all costs. In fact, if I see someone in a multiplayer game with xenocompatibility, and it's one of you guys, I'm warning you, you will be purged. But anyways, that about wraps it up for traditions and ascension perks. I'll be doing another separate video on the best ascension trees and the difference between the three ascension paths. But anyways, that's gonna do it for today, and I hope you guys stick around for part 8, where I'll be covering administrative capacity and planetary specialization. See you then.